What is up, my good people of the internet? We are back here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And when I say we, I mean Tortora
Alford.
and Isaac Alford, myself, Dan Tortora, aka DT, hanging out with you here on Wake Up Call inside of Tortora and Alford. And 44 is back. Just kidding. But,
I wish.
but it's back here right now. It's back here in the studios. I'm wearing this for Floyd Little. And you know, one of my good friends and up in heaven watching over all of us. Shout out to Deborah, Blaze, and the whole Little family, and to all of the wonderful people that have been affected by Floyd Little and his love and kindness and goodness and generosity. So I guess we'll start the conversation off there. We're here on Tortora and Alford inside a Wake Up Call to preview the 2024 Syracuse Orange Football season, as we are just a couple steps away from it kicking off on Saturday, August 31st, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time in the Dome against the visiting Ohio Bobcats of the MAC. So before we go there, though, let's talk about 44. Should they bring back 44?
I think it'll be a good idea to bring it back. They always say they want to give it to a deserving athlete that represents the school, not only on the field, but also in the classroom and in the community. You know, that's a big thing with this team now is, spreading their interest among the community. And I think the community's received them well so far. I would like to see it back on the field. You know, I think it's one of those. I always get not even gonna say emotional, but kind of like Zaire. You see it in the pros, Tuck. You know, you see these guys.
Yeah,
they wear it after they leave.
Yeah,
the school. So, but it would be cool to bring it back. You know.
Yeah, Zaire wearing number 4. And so he was wearing a piece of it, and then Sean wearing 34, and then as soon as he got to Tampa, put on the 44, and of course we've seen the 44 with Zaire Franklin, like you said. So there are guys that do wear it once they leave, but they didn't wear it while they were here because it's not made available. Now Sean Tucker had talked to me about it, and he said that he did not want to wear it.
Right.
He said he wanted to. He said he thought he was doing pretty good with the number 34, and his whole thing was making his own legacy.
Yeah, and I get that too. You know, some of these guys want to come here and you want to make it. Put your name on the program yourself. So I get it too. So, and I think that's why we probably maybe haven't seen it at this point, because maybe some of those guys do feel that way. Like, it's cool, but I want to make my number.
Yeah,
mean something to the program, but I do definitely would like to see it. And it don't have to be a running back, like you said. It could have been 44 is a good linebacker number. So definitely, I would like to see it back on the field. So it's just, we understand why they did what they did.
Yeah.
But honoring a lot of great men that wore that number in the history of the program. So it'd be cool. I wouldn't be opposed to it.
No, and the thing is when you look at it and you look at the fact that obviously it's a special number to the program, it's an important number to the program, and it's one of the most notable numbers that you're going to see historically, because you look at how many schools out there have a number that's untouchable, right? And Syracuse having the number 44, which is, I'm not against it. I when I talked to Rob Conrad, he would tell me he would defer to Floyd and Jim when they were alive and said it was their decision to make. But now, Rob is the last one to wear it. And, Mandel Robinson, a senior, he obviously wore it. Michael Owens wore it. So, I mean, there's guys that are alive that wore 44, but they would always defer back to Floyd and, like Rob said, Floyd and Jim, and then Floyd would go back to Jim. So it all kind of really hung with Jim or Floyd, and then Floyd passed away, and then Jim. So, I think at this point, it would be up to the university if they want to utilize it, but I feel like Fran could make a case for it. I really do.
Yeah.
I think, and I wouldn't be opposed to it if it went to the right person. I think it's got to go to a running back.
You think so?
I do.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I think it's, in my opinion, like, and the number that we don't really talk about a lot is that the number 5 has a lot of significance
Yeah,
too.
they do.
You know,
Yeah.
Marvin Graves, Donovan McNabb. The
Mm-hmm.
number 5 holds a lot of weight, in my opinion, but they don't ever talk about that being a number that they don't just hand out to
Mm-hmm.
anybody.
But you know how some of those programs, numbers do mean things, but it's certain programs got to give a certain number to certain players. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And I feel like that's kind of like the 44, where it can be given to certain players, or like 5. Damian Ward. Amari's wearing, I think, this year. So it can be given, and it kind of signifies certain honor. You know what I'm saying, by putting that number out. I kind of see some of these programs where a guy might have a great. They might have a great athlete that wore a number, and then that guy graduates. But you bring that number back out the next year, and it feels like, did that guy really graduate, or is he still on the
Yeah.
team? Because you see the number out there.
Yeah.
So that's what I kind of look at it like that too. Is like, sometimes you want to keep that number in the rotation because
Yeah.
but it could be cool to have that that same type of kind of almost like not the copy of Virginia Tech, but kind of use that number as an honor
Yeah.
for a reason. They do the 25 for honor. So. But I would like to see about like maybe an honorary captain or something like that once a week or something like that, or pass it around or whatever the case may be. But like you said with Fran, I think you definitely would have to make sure you do it the right way though. You can't just
Give it to anybody.
exactly
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think, that's where the conversation comes in of, how do you want to utilize it? Do you utilize it to get someone to come to the school, or is it something where you prove yourself for a couple years? See, in my opinion, if you brought back 44 and you wanted to use it for not just a running back, but a leader of the team,
Mm-hmm.
that you would have to come to the school, commit to the school, sign with the school, and spend 2 years. And if within
Yeah.
those 2 years you have signified all of the pillars of what this team stands for, that they could offer you 44 in your junior season.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I didn't even think about that because you might have some good guys come, but they might not stick around.
Right, and with the transfer portal,
Exactly.
I'm not giving somebody 44 to watch them leave.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Good point.
So to me, yeah, I think it's gotta live in that world. But I, personally would like to. I mean, I'd be open to seeing it again. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not against it. I'm not like I wouldn't be mad about it. It's just how it's utilized. But because of the transfer portal and because unfortunately things go in today's world, I wouldn't just give it to someone who's a true
Mm-hmm.
freshman.
Exactly. Yeah.
Especially if, like, could you imagine offering it to someone and they commit and then they decommit from Syracuse so they don't even come here?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
that to me would be awful.
Yeah.
So that would be a hot no from me.
Yeah.
So it really depends on how they would work it out. But I mean, when I put it on, like I said, I think of Floyd, and I think of the history of it all. But I miss the number. I miss seeing it. I'd like to see it again in my lifetime, but only if it made sense.
Mm-hmm.
And if it makes sense, then let's do it. Why not? So
Yeah. I mean, I think we even talked about that a couple of days ago, even when we were talking about like with basketball.
yeah,
It has a significance. I mean, it's a cool thing with the university, just not just the number on the team, because the university does so much with the 44. So
yeah,
they got the zip code out there, right? So, but no, I agree with you. I mean, you just can't give it to the true freshmen. Somebody got to put some time in the program, earn it. Like you say, it got to be an upperclassman. Somebody's probably dedicated to the community. There's this new age of dart,
Yeah.
probably lived that, proven that value,
yeah.
to the program. So yeah,
Yeah, I would say that those things definitely have to be a part of it. The pillars of detailed, when you look at Dart, detailed, accountable, relentless, and tough, that those are things that they would have to embody. And like I said, I think they'd have to be at Syracuse for a couple of years.
right. No
Because
doubt.
then you think about it in the sense of the coach that you have, and with the coach that you have, you look at the fact that he wants them to get an education, he wants them to be good people in the community.
Mm-hmm.
So there's people that can get their degree in 3 years.
Right.
So I think that would be another piece to help them make that decision,
Yeah.
in my opinion. So with that being said, Syracuse Orange Football preview happening here where sports meets life on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We appreciate you being here hanging out with us inside of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora's segment, Tortora and Alford. Isaac, I'm going to let you start. First thing that's on your mind this season for 2024.
Wow, man. I mean, I'm just glad the season's starting, to be honest with you. Just football, I don't care if it's SU or whoever. I mean, I'm just glad week 0 is coming up this weekend, and I'm gonna just be glad just to watch the sport again. But the main thing for the program, though, what I'm most looking forward to, just is how all these players that we bought in, see how well they gel. You know what I'm saying? We bought in a lot of pieces.
Yeah.
A lot of guys in the transfer portal, a new coach, new coaching staff, conditioning, all this stuff is different from what we've seen in the past. I think you notice it when you go out and practice and watch these guys out there. So, and you hear them talk about how well they bought into the program.
They ain't talk about me.
Exactly. So, they bought into that. So I want to see how well that translates to the field. It is a good field story so far, around here. So, I mean, I got family members and buddies from down south that are SEC, they are SEC team fans, and they talk about Fran just as much as because he comes from Georgia. So,
I love the fact that I'm trying to share our video while we're sitting here talking about it, and it sounds like I'm listening to something. It's like, I'm gonna make you dance. It's like what type of video are you watching? People dancing, Dan? Don't worry about it. Just trying to get this out here for us, but yeah, I do think that there is a lot of excitement around the program.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of positive feeling around the program.
Yeah, new building, new renovations,
Yeah.
So new traditions being started, so definitely it's going to be interesting. That's what I'm kind of most looking forward to see how all this gets put together, how the community, take a hold of it,
Yeah.
The community really supports the university. If you really think about, I know we were just talking about how big opponent stadiums are compared to what the capacity of the dome is going to be now. But still, if you look at it, a lot of these state schools, you probably have an enrollment of like 20, 30,000 kids, where SU is probably 10 if we're lucky, whatever the case may be. So that just tell you how much the community supports the program when maybe a quarter or a third of the crowd is maybe made up of students and alumni.
Yeah.
And the rest of it is, everyday Jimmy Joes that's coming here with their family members to support the team. So I think it's going to be a cool thing. New era. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to this. And we were trying to get you all shared and put all, we're trying to make sure Tortora and Alford is accessible to you all while you're watching here around the country and the world. We're up and down the East Coast, the Midwest, the West Coast, and all around the globe. So I am not one of those people that likes to ever be on my phone, especially visibly. So if you were wondering what is Dan doing right now, I was trying to share everything with you because the whole time I'm doing this, I'm like, work faster, because I didn't want to make it look like I'm not listening. So because I am. So, but no, I think. I think for everything that this team is doing or looking to do, that it's important to have the community involved. And I think it's important for the fans, and I'm going to ask them to do this, and I ask them to do this every year, but I'm going to ask y'all to show up, because if you want the team to be good, if you want them to recruit, the best of the best, if you want this team to be consistently good, not occasionally great, I am going to use that line from Dino because it's a line that works with anything, but if you want to have a successful program, it's never going to hurt you to get the community behind it. It's never going to hurt you to show up at the game and stay at the game and physically be there for the team, and not just be there when it's convenient or be there when you feel like it, or be there until the team's losing or until they're winning by a big enough margin. I think the biggest thing that we really need to focus in on is the fact that if you want to have a really special program at Syracuse University, you need to show up.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have, and I tell people this all the time, if you have the ability to, if you physically can, if you monetarily can, if you can get out there, then get out and see this game. Stay till the end. I don't know why somebody would want to leave something good when they're winning, and when they're losing, that's when they need you the most. So don't walk out on them when it's great, and don't walk out on them when it's tough. And I can tell you this from talking to the guys, they see when you leave and they don't enjoy it. And if you want to have a coach stay and you want to have recruits want to be here, think about it from the aspect of if you're a recruit and you go to Penn State and it's filled and it's rocking and nobody leaves. And you go to Notre Dame and it's filled rocking and nobody leaves. You go to Florida State and it's filled rocking and nobody leaves. And you come to Syracuse and it's half full and people start walking out and they start booing. Who do you want to play for?
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to get these top recruits, you have to act like you are the community that's behind your team. I mean, you can't ask for a 5-star. What I'm trying to say is you can't ask for a 5-star recruit and not be a 5-star fan.
Right. And the community is part of it. The fan base is part of it. It goes hand in hand, you know. I mean,
yeah.
Like you said, I mean, everybody, when you come into a stadium, you want to see how passionate the fan base is, and it does something to you, you know. And we know how loud it gets in the place, you know. Once it's loud that you can't hear the person next to you, you know, that just makes it really, really special for people to visit for your first time too, you know. If you've never been in that type of atmosphere, you know,
yeah,
it really speaks volumes.
And I'll take it from something that Walt Disney World told us when we were working there. They said, this may be the only time that someone ever comes here. So every game that's at the Dome, you can't afford to boo. You can't afford to walk out. You can't afford to not show up because that could be the only time a recruit comes there.
Right.
And in a lot of cases, it is because they're getting calls from all over the place. Some of these kids don't have the money to travel, the ability and the means to do it. So if they're going to come here and they're going to spend their time and they're going to spend their money, then show up and cheer them on and be there for them. Every single season, y'all want to know about recruits. Y'all want to know about the schedule. Y'all want to know our predictions. But when the season starts, not all of y'all show up. And I'm saying this with love. This is my city. There's no reason why that Dome shouldn't be full. And I'm telling you this right now in this moment. If you don't pack the Dome for Miami, I don't know what the hell you want. Because Miami, this is some crazy history. Miami, the last time they came to the Dome, they were in the Big East with Syracuse. So the last time they were in the Dome, they were in the same conference, but it was a different conference. They've never played each other in the Dome as ACC teams. They've only played each other once in the 11 years that Syracuse has been in the ACC. They've only played each other one time, and that was in Coral Gables down in Miami. This game, the last game of the regular season, it's on a Saturday, November 30th, 2024. The last time Miami Hurricanes were in the Dome, Saturday, November 30th, 2002. It is 22 years to the day of the week and the date of the year. And the last time Miami was here, y'all did not like Miami. Y'all didn't like that Miami was walking out on the Big East. And some may argue that when Miami walked out, it was the beginning of the end of Big East football. Because they were like the Florida State to the ACC.
Oh, yeah, they were the flagship. Yep.
So they were like the Florida State and the Clemson to the ACC. So I'm telling you this right now. 7 home games. I want y'all to be there. Because I love y'all and I appreciate y'all. And I know we can rock as a city. 2, if you're going to show up to one game this season, show up to the one that's 22 years to the date in history for the first time that Miami comes to town as an ACC school, not a Big East school. And let's remind Miami what it felt like to play Syracuse.
I remember watching the, I think it was senior day for Donovan against Miami, and that was a pretty cool game, man. You know, that was real good.
Yeah, I mean those games. I remember hearing that Miami was leaving and being upset. Like, what do you mean? And
Well, I mean, that's just, well, now we see what that effect of that decision 20 something years ago and where we're at today, because we're bringing in some brand new conference members this year. So,
Yeah, we're in the ACC, Miami, because of you.
well, yeah, it took a while, but we
Yeah.
got here, you know.
You did it. You did it. Virginia Tech, BC followed.
Mm-hmm.
Then all this time goes by,
Right.
and
Syracuse.
then you see Syracuse, Pitt, and Notre Dame in all sports but football.
Mm-hmm.
Then Louisville the year later.
Mm-hmm.
SU did it in 2013 with Pitt and Notre Dame. Then Louisville did it in 2014.
Right.
And there you go. But y'all know that I love to make predictions if I've done my homework and if I feel it in my gut. And I've told y'all, yes, Syracuse is in the ACC right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I've told y'all, I believe that realignment could, in fact, eventually lead to the return of Big East football.
Mm.
And girl, I'm ready. Rutgers, Maryland, Syracuse, BC, Pitt. They could add some other new ones in there.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I missing here?
From the Big East? Cincinnati?
I'm thinking.
Oh, just
well, yeah,
regional.
I'm thinking of some like regional ones
Right.
that I'm thinking of here.
UConn? No.
Yeah, UConn.
Okay.
I had UConn in there.
Uh,
We're gonna have some fun.
mm-hmm. I mean, Temple.
Temple was another one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you got the Pennsylvanias, the New Yorks, the Massachusetts,
Mm-hmm.
and just
No, yeah.
play it in that area. Play it in that world.
But that's the thing that's different about with this whole conference realignment stuff. We got West Coast meshing with the East Coast, and
yeah.
away games now going to be not a natural feel of rivalry. I mean, you think of a rivalry, you think of the fan base can get up and drive maybe, the most 4 hours?
Well, what did Doug Marone say?
You know,
in Newport, Rhode Island? He said, we're seeing the death of Northeast football.
yeah.
I think I was there when he was talking about, like, there is no more Northeast, because he was all about the Northeast football.
Right.
Yeah, he was all about wanting to preserve that. But yeah, are you going to go from Syracuse to Cal? Are you going to drive 2,800 miles?
Right.
32 hours?
Right. I mean, if you think about it, most of your away games, you want to at least be within a driving distance.
Well, yeah, you watch
Is it
your
cool to
family
get on a
be able to-
flight? Yeah, but,
Right.
nothing like a road trip. You know what I'm saying?
But do you want your family to be able to go?
Right.
You look at Syracuse's road games this season, one of them being Cal.
Mm-hmm.
Is that really doable? The Atlantic Coast outside of Notre Dame and like Louisville, the Atlantic Coast stayed pretty true to that.
Right.
You got your Miamis, you got your Virginia Tech, you got your North Carolina, NC State, Wake Forest, Clemson, Duke. You got your Syracuse, you got your Pitt. I mean, I understand that, where Pitt is, but ultimately you were picking states that were along the Atlantic coast. Even if they weren't right on the water, they were along the eastern seaboard.
Right.
And then you brought in Notre Dame from Indiana, and then you brought in Louisville from Kentucky, and now you have Cal, Stanford, and you have SMU in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, and we'll see how.
It's a band.
And it goes both ways, not just we talking about the East Coast. So how will it affect these teams on the West side?
Right. And we'll look at how the NFL is. The NFL, East Coast teams struggle on the West. West Coast teams can struggle on the East. We've already seen Jacksonville going to play the Chargers, going to play the Rams, and for a time period, it was like if they were going to the West Coast, you almost could just pencil in the loss.
Right.
And so, I mean, I called it a Band-Aid. To me, it is a Band-Aid. By the way, y'all are going to see my West Coast conversations. I'm very excited about having Cal and Stanford. I'm not saying I'm not happy.
Right.
I'm saying, to me, this is a Band-Aid. And I'm going to talk with Justin Wilcox, the head coach of the Cal Golden Bears, about that specifically. And I'll also be talking with the Stanford Cardinal head football coach, Troy Taylor. You can watch that for those of you watching live. You can see those this Friday, August 23rd, starting at 10 a.m. At 10 a.m. Eastern Time, you're going to see Cal. At 10:30, you're going to see Stanford. And so the West Coast conversations are going to be happening. Move them to the 10 a.m. and 10:30 a.m. hour. So on the West Coast, it'll be at 7 a.m. and 7:30. So a lot of you should be awake, going to work. For those of you who still work in California, but what?
No, it's not.
But yeah, so I'm very excited about the West Coast conversations. I want to thank Cal and Stanford too, because their sports information department doesn't know me. We had done no work together before this time period outside of me talking with Corey Etzel, the son of Randy Etzel out in Stanford. So I want to thank the athletic communications and sports information departments of the Cal Golden Bears and the Stanford Cardinal for being so welcoming to me. I want to thank Coach Troy Taylor of Stanford and Coach Justin Wilcox of Cal. Don't miss those conversations. If you're watching this and it's not live, well, then they may have already aired, and that is totally fine because you can go to youtube.com/wakeupcalldt and play them. You can also go to facebook.com/wakeupcalldt and find them there. That's where they'll be in the archive. But I've been waiting very impatiently for my West Coast conference, or West Coast unveiling of the ACC. So the West Coast teams will join me on Wake Up Call this Friday, August 23rd. Cal at 10 a.m. with head coach Justin Wilcox of the football program, and at 10:30, Stanford Cardinal head football coach Troy Taylor.
How do you think they're going to do coming in year one?
Well, I will tell you. So for those of you that don't know, I did post my predictions, and I have Cal at 14, and I have Stanford at 15. Now, I think Cal has a ton of transfers. They have a lot of transfers. And you'll hear from Justin Wilcox, the head coach, about that. But this was really difficult for me. It's sad for me because I like, obviously you get to know these coaches. I like Tony Elliott at Virginia, but I have Virginia as 17th. I have Pitt at 16, and that's hard for me because Pat Narduzzi is a guy that I respect. But my ACC football predictions, for those of you that don't know, I have Clemson, Florida State from 1 to 17, Louisville, NC State, Virginia Tech, North Carolina, Miami, Syracuse at 8, which is 4 above the overall ACC voters, because they had them at 12, SMU at 9 in their first season, underrated as in the AAC, and I am happy to see that in the ACC, people have given them some credit before they've even played a game. BC at 10, Georgia Tech, Duke, Wake Forest, Cal, Stanford, Pitt, and Virginia. These were really difficult for me to pick. Wake Forest losing Sam Hartman was tough last year, and Duke losing Riley Leonard, who's my guy. He was choosing between Syracuse and Duke in his final 2. He was on the show. He picked Duke, and now he's at Notre Dame. Before that, Sam Hartman left Wake Forest for Notre Dame. So I'd like to thank sarcastically Notre Dame for not joining the ACC in football, but using ACC football as its farm system.
Yeah, I mean, what better world to live in? You have your own network, and then you still reap the benefits of being in the conference for all other sports.
Must be nice.
Must be nice.
Must be nice to have two hands in the pot.
Must be nice.
And somebody walking up asking if you want thirds. So let's get into the season. You and I broke this down on the phone, but let's break it down for the people here. Okay. Tortora and Alford on Wake Up Call, Syracuse Orange Football 2024 preview on the verge of the season here, very close to the beginning of the season. So, offensively, strongest position to the least strongest position. So bring me quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive line, 1 through 5. Where are we at?
Right. Positions, athletic, what we think is the deepest.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I really think it's tight end leads the offense. Then I believe I went with the receiving, running backs, the next group, quarterback, and offensive line. But not saying that the offensive line is not. It's reverse order when I think the most important, as in they got to be efficient. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If we got a good offensive line, then that's going to make the quarterback job better. And then you keep going back up. The quarterback now can depend on the running game. He can be able to find the receivers and the tight ends, and it all is going to work hand in hand. But as far as he's like breaking it down by who we think has the deepest position, and athletic wise, like I said, tight end. I think the tight end room is bringing some good guys. We saw with Dan what he did at the end of the last year.
Yeah.
OG's coming back off of his injury. You got the young new freshman that coming in. I don't know if it's going to. We might get a couple of games with the, the 4-game rule. Like we kind of talked about. Hey, it's kind of nice you can get them in some games to keeping them engaged when they're if we're going to redshirt them.
Yeah.
And then, like I say, the wide receiver room. I like what we did with the wide receiver room, where we bring in some transfers. We got some great freshmen that came in. Running backs, LeQuint's going to do his thing, and we saw in the spring game, Willis, what he has the potential to do. Quarterback, reason why I put like in that order, we know what Kyle brings, but what's behind Kyle. If we had to get to that point, hopefully we don't, but
yeah.
I think we still got some strong guys behind Kyle. And like I said, for the offensive line, they just got to be able to gel who's going to be the best 5. And you even heard our friend already talked about rotating offensive linemen. So I think they feel real good about offensive line depth. You even hear them, they say that they don't call these guys starters, but, hey, this is group 1, 2, 3. And if they want to be able to depend on them, they can, and they can go to that. So in my order, like I said, tight end, wide receiver, running back, quarterback, and O-line.
Yeah, and looking at this, in my opinion, when we're going and looking at the offense and we're going 1 through 5, number 1 being the one that we think is the strongest going into the season, I think I would say, I'm going to say tight end, but I think that wide receiver, tight end, it's kind of together for me. I mean, Aronde Gadsden the second is not a tight end, but they put him at tight end. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, to me, that's because with his height, you put him in the middle of the field, this man is a danger. Mm-hmm. There's something, it's really smart that Dino did this, and now Fran's continuing this, which is don't put Aronde on the outside and make him be a receiver that's going one-on-one. Put him at tight end, put him by the line, and have him have to go up against linebackers and get past defensive linemen, as opposed to have to go straight up with a cornerback or something like that. So right. I think it's a really smart decision to put your arguably best receiver out there that way. And Dan Villari, he's a jack of all trades. A lot of people last year, including those that were at the Boca Raton Bowl, didn't know that he was a quarterback. So they're like, why is this tight end a quarterback? And it's because he has history there. So Dan Villari, jack of all trades. David Clement, who I interviewed when he was coming on to Syracuse in his recruitment. He's from Christian Brothers Academy. Yes, if it sounds the same, yes, there's one in Syracuse, there's one in Albany. He's from the one in Albany. They do have a rivalry. They will play each other in non-conference play. Okay. So David Clement said it's kind of a family, but also kind of not a family. So yeah. Maximilian Mang, also a tight end there, wearing number 0 now. And I think that this room is strong. The reason why I'm going to say tight end with a slight edge over wide receiver is there's more wide receivers out there and there's a bunch of transfers, but we have to actually see what they could do. We've seen Aronde, we've seen Dan Villari. I believe that David Clement can do some things here. In the case of wide receiver, a bunch of transfers. Zeed Haynes and Jackson Meeks coming from Georgia. Justice Ross Simmons coming from Colorado State. And then you have Emmanuel Ross, who's a freshman. You have Jameer Thomas, who's a freshman. And so there's a bunch of different guys there. And then coming back, Darrell Gill Jr. You have Amari Hatcher and Trevor Pena. Trevor Pena, a lot of positive being said about him in camp. A lot of positives being said by Amari and Amari's catches and what he's been able to do. People are excited about Zeed Haynes and Jackson Meeks. And there's also been conversation about Emmanuel Ross. So I'm going to say that Kyle McCord has a plethora of guys to throw to, including some of his running backs. But I'm going to give the tight ends on Syracuse the number 1 spot on offense because of what we've already seen. And I think having Aronde Gadsden the second and Dan Villari both healthy, both out there at the same time can create somewhat of a nightmare, confusing situation of are these guys both going to block? Is one of them going to block and the other one's going to go out? What are they going to do? Are they both going to go out? Because the day that Aronde and Dan both go out for a pass, I don't know how many teams are going to be able to stop that. And then if people thought about it, they would think if they're both out there, then Aronde is going to be the catching tight end. Dan's going to be the blocker. What if they both put him on the line, faked it, and flipped it, and Dan's catching the pass or getting a direct snap where Aronde is the guy that's going to be blocking for him?
Right. And you can see teams are going to key on Aronde first.
Absolutely.
So now if you think you're going to double him and he's staying at the line, now nobody's paying attention to the other tight end. But, it is a tough call between receivers and tight end. But like I just said, I think tight end just have a deep group, some experienced guys. I'm not saying that the other guys don't have the experience. Ross Simmons, I think is the name, the guy.
Justice Ross Simmons.
Yeah, I think he's been very productive from Colorado State. So, that's another weapon that Kyle can take advantage of. But mismatches can be found in all those different kind of formations you can have with the receivers, tight ends. And let's not, like you say, let's not forget that running backs can come out of the back. LeQuint was catching the ball out of the backfield just as well as anybody. So, they got enough of a mixture where it's not like you got to key in on one guy, right, or you can afford to key in on one guy. You got to play it honest, I believe.
Yeah, and I think what the problem was under what we saw when Dino was here was that defenses were like, well, we just have to key in on LeQuint and Aronde and we're good. And in the cases where they did that, they typically were good.
Right. And then I think the only thing that really saved them was you had a guy like Garrett that could move. So you couldn't play man on man and turn your back because then he could run away. But so I think they definitely do have a lot of weapons coming in. And I don't know if I've really seen a Syracuse team with this much talent. That could be put on the field at one time, So it's going to be interesting to see who's out there first and then how well they bring guys in and out of the game and give people different opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Dan Villari, for his ability to be really a power running back at times, a quarterback, a running back, and a receiver, big-bodied guy, at least 240, 6'4". So don't think that he's not a weapon now that Aronde's back. And don't think that he's not a weapon because there's a bunch of receivers now. I'm going to put the receivers at 2 because of the depth, and I'm going to put the running back at 3 with LeQuint. Yassine Willis, I'm excited to see him. Will Nixon, the son of offensive coordinator Jeff Nixon. And you didn't name this guy. He's wearing the same number as Rob Drummond, number 36. I am excited to see him. I'm not going to say his name first. I'm going to let you do that. I want you to be the first one to say his name on Tortora Alford.
I get to bring him the
You get to usher him into Tortora
Malachi James. Yes, Malachi James. I watched this young man all over the summer. Towards his end of his high school track year, just watching him compete. I like what I heard from him when they recruited him. How even I told you the story how he said Fran, when he committed, Fran was like, say, keep this between me and you, and this is family business. So I kind of think that's, and we've talked about this during camp. You've heard his name from the offensive coordinator and Fran come out and say, hey, this kid is fast. And, I think he's definitely, if he can work those 4 games as a freshman and get his feet wet with the system, I think he can definitely give team problems. So he's kind of like our Jawar Jordan that we had that went to Louisville,
Yeah.
And in some cases, I've seen the numbers where they showed he was faster. So imagine that, how well Jawar was with Louisville in the production as he became an upperclassman. You know what I'm saying? He had his speed here too, and he showcased it here too. But we just didn't get the opportunity. We didn't get to see the opportunity exactly. So.
No, the year he would have had it was the COVID year,
right?
When Jarvion Howard and Abdul Adams opted out, and Jawar became the number 1, and then Jawar got hurt a couple games in, and then Sean Tucker became the number 1 as the 4th string running back. To which I said, the best part of Dino Babers' 8 years at Syracuse was a happy accident when Sean Tucker had to start.
Right.
And Cooper Lutz was behind him. So, yeah, I mean, looking at this, Malachi James, one sentence that LaQuint Allen said to me. He said he's fast as blank,
Mm-hmm.
and and he said it without an expression. He was like, I was like, my buddy I was talking about Malachi James. He's like, oh, he's fast as, and he said it like the word the, like,
Right.
hey, we like this dude is crazy.
And he's not like a typical freshman. When you look, I mean, yeah, he was a trike guy, but you look at him and you look at his measurements. Man, he's pretty solid for a freshman coming in. He looked like a very mature young man that's kind of ready for college football. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, and then not saying once he get into the weight room and add a little bit more to his physique. You know, I mean, yeah, he definitely. I can see him being a fan favorite.
Wearing drums number 36. We love you, Rob Drummond. One of my brothers, like Isaac. So big time shout out to Drum number 36. Malachi James, who I believe after this season will wear number 23. You heard it here first.
Mm-hmm.
And Malachi James, Yassine Willis wears it right now. I think Yassine is going to go to 1 when LaQuint Allen is done with his time at Syracuse, which I'm hoping is a while from now. He's a junior right now. But Malachi James, I am excited for that. I talked to Isaac about the fact that with the 4 games or less rule, you can redshirt somebody if they play in 4 games. So they can essentially play in a 12-game season. They could play a third of your season and not have it count against their eligibility,
Right.
which is insane. And this rule was brought about before COVID, and having this rule that you could play in 4 games or less and still get redshirted is huge, because I told Isaac what they should do is they should put him in at least on punt return, kick return, let him go back there with Trevor Pena and show his speed and ability and see what he does in 4 games. Then, gosh forbid, you need him for, if somebody goes down, then he's already had experience at the collegiate level as a punt returner, kick returner. Give him a couple passes in the field. If you're beating Ohio by a lot, if you're beating Holy Cross by a lot, then put him out there, get him a couple reps on the offensive side. So then you are going to redshirt him. But in an emergency situation, if you cannot redshirt him, he has already experienced what it's like to have kick return, punt return, and be involved in the offense. Bare minimum, be involved in special teams on kick and punt return. So I think the 4 games helps him and helps the team, doesn't hurt anybody. And if you can redshirt him, fine. If somebody goes down with an injury, then Malachi James already has a third of the season's experience.
Mm-hmm. No, I definitely can see that, but it's gonna be hard, man, because once we get a taste of what I think we're gonna see, it's gonna be hard to keep him off the field. But I wouldn't want to waste a year. But I think special teams is important, though. All 3 phases, as they say. You got to be a good special teams, defense, and offense. So
we all talk about offense and defense.
Yeah.
But on special teams, when you're punting the ball, you're dictating with your punter and your tacklers where they start on offense. And when you are kick returning, punt returning, you're deciding where your offense starts. Mm-hmm. So we talk about offense and defense, and typically special teams last, but special teams has arguably the most important job, which is deciding how short or long the field is for the defense and how short or long the field is for the offense.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and if you got a great athlete on special teams, man, that just puts more stress on the other team.
What's up, Brady Denenberg? How you doing?
So yeah, I mean, it all works together, man. You just can't take it for granted, man. If you can flip the field with punting, I mean, that's just a great asset. And like you say, if you got a returner that can put you on the plus side, and we're not talking, you got to average 20 yards. I mean, you just got to get, a couple yards here or there just to flip the field back in your advantage, especially if you got a team that's going 3 and out.
Yeah.
Most punters going to get that ball maybe to midfield. And then now, hey, I just got to get a few more yards to get us back into plus territory. So
remember a couple of years ago when Dino put in 3 punters and one of the punters shanked it. It went like 5 to 8 yards, and it flew into the field, or flew into the stands on the right side, and he was talking about trick plays and this and that. I was like, well, that was a trick play.
Tricks on us.
I was like, nobody expected that. When Dino played 3 different punters, and he's like, well, you got to put some people out there for different things. I said, well, I guess you could call that a trick play.
We don't want to see that one again.
Yeah. So that was definitely one that caught everyone off guard, including everyone from rows 10 to 20 in the dome. So it was.
Wasn't expecting a football today, was you?
Yeah, yeah. You got a souvenir. A souvenir? A souvenir? Yeah, if George Lopez was there, he'd be like, "You want a souvenir? Did you catch the football? Did you get the football?" So going through it, I'm going to say, like I said, when we're ranking position-wise, offensively, going into the 2024 Syracuse Orange football season, here on Wake Up Calls, Tortora and Alford, I have tight end, slight edge over wide receiver, then running back, then quarterback with Kyle McCord, and behind him, I am excited for the opportunity to see Michael Johnson Jr. And or Carlos Del Rio Wilson within the first 4 games.
Yeah.
I think if Syracuse does what they're supposed to do and they take care of business, when I say do what they're supposed to do, games like, and this is no offense to these teams, games like Ohio and Holy Cross are put on these schedules for the expectation that Syracuse will, by halftime or by the third quarter, have a comfortable enough lead that you could get some reps to people that you may redshirt and to your backups. I would think it's imperative in these first 4 games before you get into the heart of the ACC, because keep in mind, they will play Georgia Tech and they will play Stanford. That in their first 4 games, they'll play 2 conference, 2 non-conference. So when they play those games, they have not played Stanford. Stanford's coming to Syracuse. And Georgia Tech is a team that they were trying to lose to last year. So
Trying?
Yeah, trying really hard to lose that game. I told Isaac, I remember turning the game on going, I got to shut this off. So Michael Johnson Jr., I was like, are we trying to lose this? But so in these first 4 games, namely Ohio and Holy Cross, and again, no disrespect to these schools, because I have a buddy on the Crusaders. I appreciate what Holy Cross is doing, and the Ohio Bobcats, I appreciate and respect them too. In these games, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing at the level that you're supposed to be at,
Right.
Michael Johnson Jr. and Carlos Del Rio Wilson should be getting reps in the second half, if not the entire fourth quarter.
Right.
So I think we're going to see Michael Johnson Jr. I think we may see Carlos Del Rio Wilson. We may not see Jakari Williams. He is the true freshman. It sounded like, from what I was understanding from the coaching staff, that maybe he is a little up and down. So I would anticipate that you will see a backup quarterback within these first 4 weeks. If Syracuse takes care of business, I'm going to put that group second to last, because Kyle McCord is really what they're hanging their hat on. Michael Johnson Jr. transferred from a couple different places. Was at Penn State, was at FAU, and came from FAU. And then Carlos Del Rio Wilson, he has had the most time on the field of any one of the 4 quarterbacks at Syracuse. Kyle's never been there. Michael's never been there. Jakari's never been there. The only returning quarterback on Syracuse's staff is Carlos Del Rio Wilson. So believe it or not, folks, that redshirt junior, who was a transfer from the Florida Gators, there is not a single person besides Jakari Williams that committed to Syracuse from high school. And of the 4 quarterbacks, there's only 1 returner in Carlos Del Rio Wilson. So I would anticipate in the first 4 games, Michael Johnson Jr. or Carlos Del Rio Wilson, and then maybe that room could boost up. I'm not taking anything away from Kyle McCord, but I'm making this 1 through 5 based on depth and what my thoughts are when it comes to this stuff. So then you'd say to me, well, Dan, the offensive line is what we've heard a ton about. You've interviewed them about the offensive line. When you talked to Fran Brown, the head coach, you brought up the point of Fran telling me, hey, we don't anticipate these guys playing the whole game on the offensive line. They shouldn't have to. They should be playing 70 snaps, not 100. So at left tackle, right now we have Demetrius Weatherspoon. At right tackle, Savion Washington. Enrique Cruz Jr., who played left tackle last season, told me in our extended conversation that he has been training at left and right tackle. So he's been in both places. Some of the depth charts have him as a guard with Mark Petrie. Gianni Reed, who comes back onto the team after transferring to Syracuse last season. It's between him and Josh Alawa. Alawa was the true center last year at number 55 on the team. And Jacob Bradford back on the team here with Joe Cruz. And Josh Miller came in as a transfer. Demetrius Witherspoon was a transfer. Savion Washington was a transfer. So the reason why I have the offensive line fifth, I agree with Isaac. It is the most important thing on the offense.
Mm-hmm.
I say this a million times, and for those of you that have heard me say it over and over again, I'm not going to apologize. And I'll tell you why I'm not going to apologize. When George O'Leary, who was a former assistant at Syracuse, when he was the head coach of the UCF Knights, and I was covering his team, he said to me, you build your team on the football field from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
You build it from the trenches out. Offensive and defensive line is the most important. Any coach who doesn't know that this is the most important thing and this is how you build a team should do something else. Offensive and defensive line, the most important, getting to the quarterback and allowing the quarterback to be able to throw the ball as well as attacking the quarterback on defense. So why did I put them fifth? I put them fifth because it has the most question marks. Mark Petrie, and this is no disrespect, Mark Petrie has not proven himself. Gianni Reed has not proven himself. Josh Alawa is not in a place where he's been considered to be the center all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Jacob Bradford has not proven himself. Demetrius Witherspoon and Savion Washington are both coming in trying to play tackle, but Enrique Cruz Jr. has more time here. So Joe Cruz hasn't necessarily proven himself. Josh Miller is a transfer. And when you say, well, Dan, what do you mean by hasn't proven themselves? What I mean by that is that this offensive line has been a musical chairs. If this was a team with proven guys at specific positions, we wouldn't see them continue to move. Mm-hmm. And we've seen them continue to move, and we've seen Fran go out and get a left tackle and a right tackle. And why would he do something like that if he's looking for people to anchor the offensive line? What he is saying is, I don't have enough in the cupboard when I got here. And the guys that are returning, Josh Alawa doesn't necessarily have the starting job. Jacob Bradford wasn't necessarily the starter. Joe Cruz wasn't the starter. Enrique Cruz became the starter, but there wasn't really too many people to push him last year.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying about the offensive line and why I have them at fifth is because there is no one that was on the team last year that came into this season with an outright chokehold on their position. If that was the case, there wouldn't be a Demetrius Witherspoon and there wouldn't be a Savion Washington.
Yeah, and then we had some guys that are no longer on the team too, that was on the offensive line.
Right.
But yeah, and the offensive line is just, it's about chemistry. You know, those five guys got to have hopefully some chemistry, playing time, real game time experience together. And I'm pretty sure, like Fran said, they're going to give them every opportunity to stress these guys out in practice to put them under the pressure to see how well they react, you know. So, and that just comes with it. You know, they just going to have to compete with each other. It's a competition, not just through camp for the whole season. So just because you see one lineup starting game one, might not be that on game 12, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but like you said, it's not like you're saying disrespectful or not proven, but these guys got to be a unit, you know. It's just not saying, okay, I was starting last year's team, so I'm the starter now.
Right.
So,
what I'm saying is nobody came into this season where you knew, okay, we got to fill right guard and left tackle and everything else is spoken for.
Right.
Nothing was spoken for. And that is no disrespect because Josh Alawa has done a hell of a job and Joe Cruz has filled in when he's been asked to. Gianni Reed was asked to come in and be able to be a guy that's on the interior of the offensive line right away when he came in last year. Enrique Cruz has worked to earn his keep, and so I respect all these guys. Demetrius Witherspoon, he comes in as a transfer, 6'7", over 300 pounds. Savion Washington, if you think 6'7" and over 300 is good with Demetrius Witherspoon, Savion Washington came in at 8'2", 420 pounds. When this man got down, number 77, you're going to get to know him day one. When he got down, you're going to get to know him in the first quarter, and he popped up in offensive line drills, and the offensive linemen were basically set up as like defensive linemen for the guys to come up and grab them and push them. When Savion Washington came up, and I think he pushed Enrique Cruz. When Savion Washington came up and I saw number 77, I said, I didn't know Andre the Giant was on this team right now. And I will tell you this to Fran Brown's credit. In the entire time that I have covered Syracuse football, I have never seen an offensive lineman that looked like he could eat half of someone's other team. Like, I've never seen, in the entire time that I have covered Syracuse, since coming back here over a decade ago, I have not seen someone the size of Savion Washington. And I thought to myself, wow, if you want to beat Florida State, if you want to beat Clemson, if you want to hang tough with teams in bowl games, if you want to play the Oregons of the world someday, and you want to play the South Carolinas, and you want to play, I would say, if you want to if you want to go up against like the Penn States of the world, you got to have these 8-footers. And Savion Washington, I will tell you this right now, he looks like a guy that in previous years would have picked any other school but Syracuse. And he transferred here from Deion Sanders' Colorado. And I think that says a lot about Fran Brown and the crew.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I will give you, like, to your point about size, that's the one thing you do notice when you look at the roster by size. I think I was telling somebody, like, and Fran even mentioned it in the last press conference. He's like, I want an SEC offensive line and I want an SEC defensive line.
Yeah.
But
you can tell, too, with the guys that came back, not just size, like height, but like everyone's putting on muscle and they're dropping body fat.
Yeah. And then, like, just look at the measurements. I mean, it's like the line is like out of the, maybe 13, maybe only the 2 that probably because they're freshmen are under 300 pounds, but they like 6'6", 320, somewhere in that range,
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's some big guys, man. I mean,
and Enrique Cruz Jr. being on the team for a couple of years before this season, I asked him in our interview that you could see on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe, hit the notification bell, and there's a Syracuse football playlist to make it even easier on the YouTube channel. You'll find my conversations over the years with so many coaches and student athletes, and you'll see Enrique Cruz, our most recent one. I asked him about it, and he talked to me about the strength and conditioning and spoke highly of the staff. And I said to him, how would you describe yourself now? He said, I'm a monster.
Yeah, you can see it too, man.
Yeah.
You definitely can see it. I mean, whatever they did over the summer and the spring, man, you just imagine that just snowballing, that keep continuing with the classes and building on top of that, man. I mean, yeah, they're on their way. I mean, I like it.
Yeah. Getting money like a monster. Well, meet Mel before the show. So, defensively, give me your units. So, 1 through 3 here. Defensive line, linebacker, DBs. We'll group all the DBs together as they are the back line. Syracuse had a 3-3-5. They now have a 4-2-5. They did say that they can switch in to a 3-3-5 and do some different things. But the thing that's been kept with Dino Babers' most recent defense under Rocky Long, and before Rocky Long,
Nebraska, Tony.
Yeah, Tony. Yeah, Wow,
I know
it's escaping us both. So it's So Tony, who had it before, his play, Tony White.
Tony White, yeah.
So Tony White, who had the 3-3-5 that he brought in, learned it from Rocky Long. Syracuse got Luke Skywalker, and then they got Yoda when they got Rocky Long. The 3-3-5 that was working, and DBs not only successful at Syracuse, but DBs going to the NFL. The Andre Sisco's, Trill Williams, Garrett Williams, Afatu Melifonwu, and so on and so forth. And by the way, if you look like 10, 12 years ago, the defensive back unit was the worst unit, not on Syracuse's defense. It was the worst unit on the entire Syracuse football team, in my opinion. And since switching to the 3-3-5 and putting the emphasis on the back line, and even a little bit before that, this team proved how good their DBs have become over the years, and that with the 3-3-5, sending guys to the NFL, having success, and putting the emphasis on the back line. Well, when Fran Brown brought in his staff and Elijah Robinson came in from Texas A&M, he made the decision to keep the 5 in the back. And so we have a 4-2-5, which could be a 3-3-5, because I am suspecting that the hybrids that are on this team, like a Fidel Diggs, are going to be able to either plant their hand in the ground or kind of pretend it and then stand straight up and do what they need to do as a linebacker. I think we're going to see the hybrid and the agility of these guys and the harassment of I got a feeling that this is going to be a harassing defense. And the reason why I feel like it's going to be such a vivacious, passionate, energetic type of defense, punch you in the mouth, punch punch in the mouth, drag out type of thing, is because the defensive coordinator, Elijah Robinson, also can be referred to as the notorious ELI. So is what I would call him, because if you've ever heard him when he's yelling at practice, he sounds like this at the end of practice. So I'm going to call him the notorious ELI,
Okay.
and I'm going to copyright and print that right now. So if y'all steal it, which I know y'all already are thefts like crazy, but if you see or hear notorious ELI, Syracuse fans, can you back me up on this?
Definitely.
So I send y'all my love, and listen, I joke around, but on the real, the media are who they are. Not everybody. There's some great people. To the 4 of those people, I love you. To the 1,025,000 that are the other way, I pray for you every day to have a heart. But what I really want to say about this right now, just to kind of sidestep for a moment, is I look forward to the day of honesty in the media throughout, of not stealing each other's work, of giving credit where credit's due, and to have a common decency and humanity to, at the bare minimum, hold doors open, say hello to people, and have the kindness and the generosity that you would expect someone to have for you.
There you go.
Let's go to the defense. Give me 1, 2, and 3, starting with the strongest, and it's all up to you here.
Hey, I was sitting over here thinking, I was like, what did we speak the last time we talked? But it came back to me.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, I think defensive line is definitely going to be a strong point. I like what they've done with the transfers, the guys they brought in. You know, they brought in a lot of size. Even they kept a lot of guys from last year's squad that came back, you know, that were some big guys. So I say defensive line definitely is the deep position for the defense.
Yeah.
The back end, the 5 as you call it, you know, the DBs, I would say I would rank them number 2 because of the experience. You know, you got David JB back there, you bringing Deuce back, you got Cinco back there. You know, you got a young, talented, up-and-coming freshman that they're looking at. You got the guy coming in from Notre Dame, Williams. You know, I think that group is real experienced, so I'm gonna give them the second, and then 3, not because of talent and stuff. I don't, be honest with you, I don't think there's a weak spot on the defense, but we're just ranking them, you know, as most important. But linebackers to me, maybe because maybe you're going to the 4-2-5 and there's maybe less of them on the field, but like you say, the D line can change. But those 2 that we got with Marlo and Derek, you know, if we can have other 2 out there, those are the 2.
I wish Marlo changed his number to 3 so that when they were running at you, it said 315.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Because Derek's number 15.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, that's what I think in the order for me is D-line, the back end, and then the linebackers. But they all going to work in, you know, hand in hand together, you know what I'm saying? And the new defensive scheme, like you said, I think they're going to be more attacking. I think with the 3-3-5 is more stunting and doing playing angles and stuff like that, and maybe bringing guys from different places and stuff. But and then you got Fran back there coaching DB, so
yeah.
You know,
and I've watched him, and I've seen him through spring. I've seen him. I've seen him through the spring and the fall working individual drills. So he is the head coach, but he is definitely in the DB room. And he is right there with these guys, running with these guys, doing things with these guys.
But in the line, even like we say 4-2-5, but go back to the linebackers though. That's the spring game. Watching the spring game, there's a lot of young linebackers on this team. That you know they're up and coming guys that you haven't seen them on the field yet, but even some of the freshmen, you know, Diggs' brothers coming in. You look at them, and me and a buddy of mine was comparing them, and then. They still got guys that's coming in from the New Jersey area, these linebackers, 6'4", 235, 6'4", 244.
Yeah.
You know, young linebackers coming into the, you know, it's crazy, man, to see what the potential of being, you know, in the coming years. So the talent is deep on the defensive end. Like I said, I'm not really worried too much on the defensive side. It's going to be interesting to see how they work them into it, who's played. Because, you know, some of these guys can play special teams, too. So, who makes special teams as a young player on the team. And I know the coach kind of talked about, you know, going to the league, you're going to give maybe some of the starters. I know your philosophy on it, you know, you don't want to put too many starters on specials because you don't want to get them hurt playing specials. But that's kind of give him a little bit tape for the next level to see, hey, he's a linebacker, but he can go down and play coverage and stuff like that. So, but to me, D-line, the back end, and then linebackers.
Yeah, and I go back to the Tulane game because I do think it's valuable. And to your point of an offensive or defensive player playing on special teams, it does make them more valuable to have the more tape. It's never going to hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
And to be able to show that they could do more. LaQuint Allen able to field a punt or a kick return and to show what he could do in an open field and how he can move. I go back to, I believe it was Patrick Jenkins, that watching him with the Tulane Green Wave in the game against USC where they won 46-45 in an instant classic at the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic a couple seasons ago down in Arlington, Texas at the Cowboy Stadium at AT&T Stadium.
Right.
I was there for that game, and I believe that Patrick Jenkins was responsible for a huge defensive play, and then I think that on special teams he knocked the guy back and made the guy have to, and made them have to start right. I think he actually got the safety.
Okay.
So, to your point, here he is on defense, and then they put him right back out there on special teams, and he's killing it. And so I do see a value in that. And at the same time, I see the do it to a certain extent.
Be smart about it.
But understand that, I think anytime you put your starting running back, starting receiver back there, starting, one of your top two corners back there, everyone in the audience takes a collected like that when is he okay? So, that's the other side of it to watch out for. So my note, I'm going to totally cop out and say this entire defense is one unit, but no, I'm kidding. But no, not. But for Tim Diggs, Fidil's younger brother, he is not wearing 44, but he's the closest to it. Right. He's wearing Ernie Davis's number with the Browns 45. So just watch out for the fact that he is in this linebacker unit. But I'm going to say the number one for me defensively going into the 2024 Syracuse Orange football season, I'm going to say the defensive line. Those that know me know that I am always for 4 sets of hands down as opposed to 3. I am always for the trenches. I just talked about what George O'Leary said to me a long time ago. They never left me, and it's because it's true. But I'm always for more hands down than hands up, and got him. But I thought about that. I'm like, I'm definitely not for putting my hands up. So, see, the problem is you're stupid. But a lot of inside jokes happening here. But Fidel Diggs coming onto the team, Deion Wilson Jr., look out for him as well. Kevin Jobity Jr., who was like a third-string guy, he's moved his way all the way up here as one of the few returners with Chase Simmons and Elijah Fuentes-Cundiff, and then having Dennis Jacquez Jr., who was on the show with me a couple times here in the fall. So excited about that. And Murad Watson coming as a true freshman. Rashard Perry, a sophomore in this game. So Perry's back. Fuentes-Cundiff is back. Simmons is back. Jobity Jr. and Jacquez Jr. are back. Unfortunately, Braylon Ingraham, he had a tear, and that took his season. He tore his Achilles. And unfortunately, Fran gave that news within the last couple weeks, and we pray and we hope the best for him. It sounds like the former Alabama defensive lineman who came to Syracuse last season, who we really didn't get to see that much. It sounds like Fran is trying to help him maybe transition and maybe help with the coaching staff side of things. So our prayers with Braylon Ingraham and his family in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. And to all of your families and to you, everybody needs a prayer. Could never hurt. So, with Fidel Diggs and him being really a focal point of the conversation, and Dennis Jacquez Jr., there's a lot of New Jersey players on this team. Jacquez Jr. is one of them, Deuce Chestnut, and so on and so forth. When I spoke to Dennis Jacquez Jr., he talked to me about the fact that Fran recruited him and how much that meant to him originally when Fran was obviously not at Syracuse. So I'm going to put the defensive line as the number one. And for those, and Isaiah Hastings coming over as a transfer, for those of you saying, oh, who's this David Amapariola player? Well, he came on my show before that, And his actual full name
Mm-hmm.
is Oluwade Malade Amapariola is his full name.
David.
And in the words of Papa Joe, I'm like, Papa Joe, say it. And he goes, no.
No.
I always go, DJ Uyunglele, and he goes, Little Tua. Yeah. DJ Uyunglele. But, so it's like saying Andale kind of, but yeah, DJ. So, Oluwade Malade Amapariola, who you know as David Amapariola on the roster, he's another guy that some people I've heard a little rumbling
But there's a lot of young
about
boys
him.
out there.
He's a redshirt freshman. You know them young boys. So, so I'm gonna say, secondly for me on this team. So I'm gonna say first defensively is gonna be the defensive line. Secondly, I'm gonna throw you a curveball. I'm gonna say the line. I'm going to say the linebacker core, and I'm going to say it because of the leadership of Derek McDonald and Marlo Wax.
Yeah.
And then people talking about my dude. I'm so happy hearing this guy's name. He came on my show. Pleasure to have on the show when he was going through his recruiting. Zion Moultrie Goddard, redshirt freshman. So happy to have him back. Anwar Sparrow. Very happy to have him. When I see his name, I think of Anwar Sadat, and from the movie I Love You, Man, when he says my dog looks like Anwar Sadat, and he's like Anwar Sadat. I think it was like the leader of Egypt or something. But when I see Anwar, it's the only other time I heard the name. And Sparrow, I hear the song My Eyes Are on the Sparrow. So Anwar Sparrow, when you sack somebody or force another fumble in your collegiate career, I will be happily writing the quote, I guess their eyes weren't on the sparrow. So looking forward to that. And seeing you do that. James Hurd comes over from West Virginia. Do they have a team in West Virginia?
Yeah, they got a team.
Oh, they got a team?
They got a little team out there.
They got a little team out there. I don't know what that is. So he's a transfer over here. All I'm saying to West Virginia fans,
we got the trophy. That's what he's saying.
All I'm saying is that I've been at the last couple games and y'all been talking, saying a lot of stuff, but y'all heat them buses up before the game's over because I guess somebody's not around to gloat about a game they didn't win. And in the last 4 games, Syracuse is 4-0. But every single time, Jerome Smith, he goes, man, them boys talk even though they lose every time. So, yeah. So, I'm just saying. And so Derek McDonald, all I'm saying, James Hurd, is you made the right choice the second time. So, I'm pissing people off. I'm kidding with you, West Virginia. All I'm saying is, West Virginia, come to the ACC. Give it to me, baby.
Yeah,
come over here.
You know where to find us.
Because in my realignment, I had Maryland and West Virginia coming in, and the ACC actually having some rivalry because Syracuse, West Virginia, Pitt, West Virginia, all that good stuff. And so Marlo Wax and Derek McDonald, I'm going to make this the second, and I'm going to put the third unit for me. I know it's got the most players, but I'm going to put it as the third because it has a ton of transfers that may be starting. So Devin Grant at corner, Clarence Lewis, who we've heard a lot about, number 3 at corner, and the return of Darius, a.k.a. the Mighty Deuce, Chestnut, coming back on the team, playing free safety. Agent 0 is now. And then Agent Cinco, Elijah Clark, he is that like kind of roving guy in a way and whatnot. I mean, he could be playing a bunch of different stuff. Justin Barron is also the rover. Jaden Gould, number 21, who's been on the show, another guy from Jersey, is back. Jaden Bellamy, who was wearing 23, is wearing number 1 now. Jalil Martin is another guy that you're going to see back here. And then Barry Buxton, the third. And then Cornell Perry is back on the team, not to be confused with defensive lineman Rashard Perry. And then we have Marcus Washington Jr., Brahim Long Jr. is another name that came up in camp, Marcellus Barnes Jr. So a lot of guys here. The only reason why I'm putting them as third out of 3 on the defensive side is because of the newer guys coming here and other guys having to step up and just seeing what that's going to look like. But I could very easily tell you that the linebackers blend in with the hybrids on the D line.
Mm-hmm.
And I could very easily tell you that the Justin Barons of the world blend into the linebackers as somebody that could be a rover.
Right.
And a rover is a safety linebacker hybrid.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm essentially saying to you is, by picking the D line first, I kind of included the linebackers, and by picking the linebackers, I picked their longevity and veteran leadership with the team. But I'm also, it's not lost on me, Justin Barron, Elijah Clark, and Deuce Chestnut in the back.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, definitely. You could say they got experience on
They
all
kind
three
of all
levels.
blend together.
Yeah, they got experience on all three levels. So, it's not like we're bringing in, other than Barnes, maybe the possibility, but most of these guys have been on the field before they got starts under their belt. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, and so let's go to the special teams.
Mm-hmm.
And here on Tortora and Alford, inside of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, here with Isaac Alford and myself, Dan Tortora, a.k.a. DT, previewing the Syracuse Orange football season as we were just a couple steps away of the 2024-25 season kicking off, in the first season of Fran Brown as the head coach, and first season of Fran Brown as a head coach anywhere, not just at Syracuse, after coming from winning 2 national championships as a member of the staff at Georgia. We look at the special teams. Returning is punter Jack Stonehouse. Place kicker and kickoff kicker is Brady Denneberg, who is back as well. Trevor Pena, God willing, will be able to do his thing. He's only considered a redshirt junior, even though he's been at Syracuse for 7 years. And so, but Trevor Pena, family, Davina, the whole family, I love you. So Trevor, keep representing the Hispanic culture. Keep representing Syracuse. Keep representing your family. Trevor, if it was up to me, you could play here for 14 years. So all I want for you is a healthy, full season, at least with 1 bowl game, for you to go out there and do some amazing stuff, as I know you're capable of as a receiver, which we saw a lot of him in the spring game with Kyle McCord, and as a kick returner, punt returner. Yeah.
I mean, the spring game was really coming out for him with Kyle. The patterns and routes across the middle. So definitely, there's an opportunity for him to get the chance to have a comeback year for, like you said. Like he said, last year was kind of real tough on him being out so many games. But it's an opportunity to kind of show that he's back on track to be a productive member of the team.
So let's do punter, kicker, and returner. Where would you rank?
I would say returner is first in the group.
And by the way, on the arguable depth chart, I believe
I see him.
I believe that some people agree with me that Malachi James is right behind Trevor Pena.
Yeah, I see him. So I would say, given that fact, I would say returners are first. I'm gonna go punter next, because defensively he's I count him as defense, but flipping the field, maybe pinning the offense back in deep territory, and I would say kicker, not last, but I hope Brady, he get his opportunity to get some field goals, but I'd rather see him kicking extra points more than field goals. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. But yeah, let's get him a field goal every once in a while, not being the majority of the points on offense. So, but that's my my rating of that.
Yeah, I'm going to put special teams, Trevor Pena, Malachi James, from what Isaac and I are feeling going into the Syracuse football 2024-25 season, is that is going to be a dazzling element of the team. So I'm going to put them first. I'm going to put Stonehouse second in the punter unit, because Syracuse was spoiled with the Riley Dixons and the Rob Longs and the Sterling Hoffrichters and so on of the world.
Putting them in the league, man. Let's put some punters in the league.
Yeah, well, Rob Long, if not for having brain cancer, would have been in the league.
Right.
Riley is in the league. Sterling Hoffrichter found his way into the league, and I'm pretty confident that he's now found his way into the UFL and all that. So, shout out to all of those gentlemen. There was kind of a dip, and I think Stonehouse has brought it back a little bit. Brady, I think getting the first season he was in there as a true freshman, he was doing really well. Last season, maybe a little bit of a mental game. So I'm going to reluctantly put the kicker at third. but Brady knows that. I mean, I was with him. I was with him before he got an offer, telling him that I hope he got one. And his mentor just so happens to be my favorite Syracuse kicker of all time, which is Nate Trout. So Nate helped Brady. He wanted me to talk to Brady. We did an exclusive before Brady got an offer. Then he got it 8 days later. I think it was 7 or 8 days later. Then we did another interview of when he got it. Then we did an interview of when he came to campus. Then we did an interview of when he said he was committing to Syracuse. And he was the first person I saw at last year's fall camp. And he always greets me with a smile. I saw him I saw him in spring ball this year. I went under Fran. He came up to me in spring ball and he looked right at me and he said this. He goes, "Hey," he goes, "Man," he goes, "Good work." He's like, "I've been paying attention to your stuff." And he's like not just like Sarah. He's like all your stuff. He's like, "You're doing a good job." So Brady, I love you. I am reluctantly putting this third because I believe that this could arguably be your best season. What I'm really trying to do, Brady and the Denneberg family, is I'm trying to low key you so you high key remind people who you are. So I'm trying to just like do a little bit of like, "Oh yeah, Brady," and not shout it, because I was shouting your freshman season when you were kicking pretty much every single kickoff into the end zone. Allowed over 90% to not be returned. Something ridiculous. So I fully expect Brady to have a great season. And this is really hard because I don't think it would even be fair to put him third. But I'm excited for what's coming up this season and what you're going to be able to do. And I hope that people sit back and watch number 15 go to work. I hope this is your best season yet. And whatever goes on in the mental world, all I can say to you, Brady, is, bro, I've been there. And the only person that ever truly stands between you and your success is yourself. And the moment that you get out of your own way, well, that's when 60-yarders go through the uprights.
Oh, yeah, but you would know he has a strong leg. But I would just say be prepared, because if we think this offense is going to be what we think it's going to be, there's going to be a lot of kicks that you're going to have to make, whether it's field goals, but definitely extra points. So
yeah,
if you could still make a season out of yourself just hitting all those, those 1 points add up.
Hey, when they look at the end, when the NFL goes, you were 45 of 45.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
You can have there's some kickers on the scoring record, believe it or not.
And I've learned. Well, Nate Trout was the all-time leading scorer before that was broken by Cole Schmidt. Or no, it was broken by it was broken by Andre Schmidt. But then I think not Cole Schmidt. But I think Cole had it. Cole Murphy had something, and then Andre broke it.
Gotcha.
So it was Nate, and then Cole did some awesome things, and then Andre Schmidt broke it. And if I've learned anything about Isaac in the last couple of weeks, he's very serious about his kickers.
Very serious.
So let's go to the schedule here, and we're going to make our picks. Syracuse schedule is up on your screen right now. For those of you on YouTube and Facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. I want to remind you that Wake Up Call's normal times are Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time worldwide. You can watch and listen from anywhere on YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com was live internet streaming radio. I do implore you to find us on Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Podbean, Podchaser.com, Podvine, Spotify, TuneIn, and YouTube, amongst others. All you have to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. When you find us, subscribe to us, follow us. It is free, and that app will update itself every time I add a broadcast to the archive. So with that being said, the schedule is up on your screen. Ohio is first, then Georgia Tech, then a break, then Stanford, then Holy Cross. Then for the second year in a row, Syracuse said, no October games. And so they will play UNLV. They will also play NC State and Pitt. I believe they have a break.
I think it's a break before Pitt.
Yeah, break before Pitt.
I think we're both coming off buys.
Then it's Virginia Tech at home. And then it's BC on the road, Cal on the West Coast, after welcoming West Coast Stanford. And then UConn, old rival the Big East at home, and old rival the Big East Miami at home. Because they're trying to tell us it's going to happen again. So that's the schedule. 7 home games. Unlike Ohio State, who plays 10 out of 12 at home, they're at, but Ohio State, mind you, folks, all jokes aside, Ohio State did play, I think they played 8 home games within the last few years, and I'm pretty confident Ohio State and Michigan typically don't leave their home for a long time, so I don't want to hear anything about Syracuse having 4 home games to start the season. So we're going to make our picks. Isaac's going to go first. I'm going to circle the picks that Isaac is making here. I'm going to go ahead and circle them as we go, and then I'll write your overall record. So Ohio State, I'm going to circle the ones that you think are a win. I'm going to X the ones you say are a loss. So Ohio State. Yeah,
I know what you mean, but we're going to go straight
whole
go
straight
schedule.
Down. Yeah, we're going
to flip. Okay.
And we're going to do the whole schedule, and then I'll go.
Oh, okay. So to me, I'm thinking out of the first 4, they're going to go 3-1, unfortunately. So I'm saying Ohio's a W.
Okay.
Georgia Tech's a loss. I hate to say it, but I think that's a tough team. But Stanford's a win. Holy Cross is a win. So that's my 3-1 start.
Okay.
So going in October, who's that next? UNLV, that's a win.
NC State.
NC State. I want to say win, but I'm going to go ahead and say loss. Pitt, win after the bye. I want this one bad, but because they put it on us last year, Virginia Tech, but I'm going to say Virginia Tech's a loss too, but I'm gonna change some stuff at the end, but let's go ahead and say Virginia Tech's a loss.
Okay.
BC is a win.
BC with head coach Bill O'Brien now, and Douglas Marone as one of his
Cal's
staff
a
members.
win.
Yep.
UConn's a win. And to finish the season, I think it's going to be a tough one. That might be the loss, too, for the Miami. So, you just know what overall is. I think it's 8-4, isn't it?
Yeah, 9-3. Oh, no, you do have 8-4.
Yeah.
My bad. So let me do this here.
There you go. So that's my 8-4, but there can be some spoilers and surprises in there. As we talked about it during the season, I think this is a 8-win team, but I think it could be great, by having some spoilers. All right, so I'm going to
go ahead and circle the ones that you had. Circle them. So you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Did you have 9?
Not.
Oh no, you didn't have Virginia Tech.
No,
so
I didn't have.
Ex Virginia Tech, you had UConn.
Yeah.
So you got 8-4.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was my early prediction. Is what Isaac has now overall record. So I'm going to go ahead and clear the board here and do mine, but I'm going to put Isaac's back up. So Isaac has 8-4 as a record. I'm going to say Ohio is a win. I'm going to say Georgia Tech is a win.
Okay.
I'm going to say Stanford is a win. I'm going to say Holy Cross is a win.
Okay.
I'm going to say UNLV is a win. I'm going to say NC State is a loss. I'm going to say Pitt is a pain in the butt with Syracuse play, but I'm going to say a win this year. I'm going to say Virginia Tech, who I have in the top 5 in the ACC, is a loss. I'm going to say BC is a win. I'm going to say Cal is a win. I'm going to say UConn is a win. I'm going to say Miami is a loss. So I'm going to have 9-3. Now, what I had originally in the beginning of this is I had 8-4.
Right.
And I told people that recently I argued 9-3. My words originally were 8-4, but I believe that there is a case for a 10-win team.
Right.
Now, Ohio, I'm going to say is a win. Georgia Tech, I put as a win. And the reason why I put Georgia Tech as a win is because they have to, as we talked about off the air,
Mm-hmm.
they have to expose themselves earlier than other teams because they're playing Florida State in Dublin, Ireland, and Florida State's a top 10 ranked team. So Georgia Tech's going to have to give up a lot of what they're trying to do if they want to win the game.
Right.
And so if they're playing the long game, maybe they don't show as much and kind of, go into it saying if we lose, we lose. Or maybe they throw the house at Florida State. What I think Florida State's going to do is Florida State's going to try to run 5 plays. Something like that, a small amount of plays. And they're going to try and hide. But if Florida State's in a situation where the game is tied or within one possession late in the game, or there's, gosh forbid, for the Seminoles overtime, they're going to have to show the house.
Right.
Because Florida State cannot lose the first game of the season.
Oh, no.
So I think because Georgia Tech has to expose themselves, that's a win. But I'm also saying I'm watching both Stanford and Georgia Tech as an alert. Georgia Tech as a potential loss. Stanford as a potential upset alert. Holy Cross stays the win. UNLV I'm a little concerned about, but my gut's telling me Fran's got it. It's going to be all right. NC State, Dave Doran, I've known him for a long time. I've known him the whole time he's been there, and they're a tough team. I think Pitt could be better this year, and I still think Syracuse sometimes plays them close. But that's a game where I think Fran knows, like, you want to get the fan base back. You beat the Pitts and the UConns and the Miamis, and the Virginia Techs. Virginia Tech's a tough team. BC's going to be better. I think under Bill O'Brien, they're going to get some things right over the next couple of years if he sticks around. Cal I got as a victory, and so I think 9-3 is where I'm at. But I think if there's a Georgia Tech, Stanford, or even a potential Pitt kind of blunder there, that we could see the 8-4 that I originally predicted. But this is where, when I've simulated this the last couple times, I've ended up at 9-3.
So you want my 10-2 teams? Now, I'm glad you explained that, because we did have that off the air conversation about Georgia Tech. Yeah. Yes, Georgia Tech might have to expose themselves in game 1, but the difference between, this is where I kind of not worried about Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech got a great quarterback coming back.
Yeah.
They got some good young pieces. I just rewatched the Georgia Tech North Carolina game from last year, and where they beat North Carolina, and then I watched a little bit of Georgia Tech Miami from last year.
Yeah.
So they got some dudes coming back, but this is the thing for Georgia Tech. Our game 2 is actually going to be their game 3.
Right.
So they're going to have chances, maybe play the house and throw everything at Florida State, but then come back week 2 playing Georgia State and maybe dial it back and not do as much. But yet that's another game under their belt.
Yeah.
Where we're coming off of game 1, they're in our game 2. They already got those engines. They already been moving around for a couple of weeks. So that could be the. That's why I say it could be a loss, because they have the advantage of playing one extra more game. But
they're also going to have a weird schedule.
Yeah.
Because they're playing overseas at noon at Eastern time, our time, which is going to be like 5 o'clock in Ireland. And then they're playing at 8 p.m. the following Saturday. And then they're playing Syracuse at noon. So you're essentially playing a jet lag. Well, I mean, it's a noon game, but not a noon game over there. Then you're playing at 8, and then you're playing back at true noon for them.
And they back on the road again. So that could be a different thing too. So, and this is what I'm going to say about the win part for Syracuse of that Georgia Tech game.
Yeah.
Well, we coming into this year, what we played against Georgia Tech. Last year we played Georgia Tech.
Georgia Tech's got a schedule though this year.
Yeah. Last year we played Georgia Tech running Wildcat. Yeah. We didn't have a quarterback. It was easy. They already seen what we did against Pitt the week before.
Well, I just wish Dino would throw it a little bit, because, like,
yes,
when you saw Tim Tebow when he was with the Jets, and Rex Ryan was like, Tebow's coming in, what we gonna do? And we're like, you're gonna run the ball, because they wouldn't throw the ball. Denver would throw it with them. They wouldn't throw the ball with the Wildcat with Tim. If every time you bring a player in, they only do one thing. If you know when they're coming onto the field that they're not a decoy, and you know when they come onto the field that they're one-dimensional, then what's the point of catching the team by surprise? Right. If anything, I'd bring Tebow on as a decoy, have him come off, and then people go, what the hell did he come on for? And then bring him on and have him play tight end, have him play running back, have him play quarterback. But the Jets had this thought in their brain that if we bring him out onto the field, no one's going to know he's going to be involved. And if we put him under center, they all think he's going to pass it. And they only ran the ball with this poor guy.
Right.
Which Tim Tebow is so much better than people give him credit for. So stop. And somebody said that he is by far the worst hitter in baseball history. And did people forget Michael Jordan played baseball?
Exactly. But yeah, to your point though, it's like they had time to prepare for what we have last year. And I'd say all that to say this year we got Kyle. We got the weapons at wide receiver. There's no bringing all these guys into the box just to stop the run with no fear of the pass. So in saying that, that could be a shoot. And last year, like you said, you was frustrated because it was the game we was trying to lose. So it's not like they blew us out, but they still had the advantage because we really couldn't stress them. You know what I'm saying? They could say, we've seen tape of the Wildcat. Yeah, you either going left or right, or, he's going to keep the ball or whatever. There was the corners didn't have to worry about the receivers getting behind them. And now everybody's getting too close to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
But yet we still put a little fear in them because we wasn't backing down. So that's what I'm saying. We still played them tough. But for the weapons that we have coming into the season, I think we can surprise them, And like we were just looking at the schedule, overseas, back home, probably dial it back. But you're still a night game, which they probably did that on purpose, giving them a night game since you're coming back from overseas. Give you a couple more hours.
Right.
To get your legs, but still you got to go back on the road.
But it's so confusing. You're playing a noon Eastern time game that's really a 5 o'clock game.
Right.
Then you're playing another night game, but the other night game was not a true night game. And then you're playing a noon game that is a noon game, and the other one's a noon Eastern time, but you're not playing that one at noon where you are. So it's weird. Then they play VMI. Then Georgia Tech this season, after their first 4 games, they play at Louisville. They play Duke, at North Carolina, Notre Dame, at Virginia Tech, Miami, NC State, at Georgia. Holy mother, does Georgia Tech have themselves a gamut to have to get through this season that they have going on here. And granted, Georgia Tech had themselves a nice season last year. They did some good things last year, and they got a lot to be proud of last year for the work that they did. And at the same time, this year, they are going to be challenged upon challenged upon challenged. And Brent Key, who did a good job coming in, he's got a lot of work ahead of him. Shout out to Chris Winkie, who, by the way, are we talking about this? When Georgia Tech plays Florida State in Dublin, Chris Winkie is the assistant head coach and co-offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach for Georgia Tech. He's going to be coaching against his old team.
And is my man, the tight end, still on Georgia Tech from Syracuse? I know he was on it last year. I'm drawing a blank on my man.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. It's oh my goodness, I know who you're talking about because it was the one
here during COVID.
It was the 1-2 punch. Luke
Benson.
Luke Benson.
Yeah. I don't know if he's still with them, but yeah. I think that's the opportunity of my 9th win. And win number 10 for me is NC State. Now, I think NC State has a good running back. Maybe they bought in somebody or something like that, I've heard. But I can't remember off the top of my head. But I'm not sure what they don't have.
No more Luke Benson.
No more Luke Benson? Okay. No. Okay. So he matriculated through the program last year. So, I mean, I like Luke, too, because he had speed. I remember he had that game, might have been against Holy Cross. It was one of those non-conference games where he took it for like 80 yards. I think it might have been during COVID. And I was like, well, come on, Dino, where are we doing that at?
Yeah.
I think we did it one time, and that was it. So, anyhow, but I think the NC State game could be number 10. I mean, yeah, Dave Doran does put a good team together, but I don't know if they got the – maybe they do. I haven't followed them. I know they kind of – struggle. I mean, even who's the offensive coordinator, Robert and I down there. So
yeah,
they really. I mean, last year I didn't think they did much. I mean, they had a decent season, but I think that that could be a possible 10th win for me. And then everybody else, given the 2 losses to Virginia Tech and Miami.
Yeah.
So, in the best scenario, that's what I can see. Maybe
Yeah. And so I think I just answered some of your questions here. Appreciate them coming in, folks. We did talk about the offensive line earlier, but to the question that we got from Dennis, how do we think the O line will hold up? We talked about bigger guys as far as body wise and height, bigger guys than have been typical at Syracuse in recent history. The returners on the team have gotten bigger as well.
Right.
And also looking at the fact that we're still wondering who is going to take a command of certain positions, including the center position and some of those interior positions, and where Enrique Cruz Jr. is going to end up if Savion and Demetrius end up starting.
Right. I think they got a lot of competition
Yeah.
More than probably years past, where you had your one or two guys, and then the other guys was kind of like Phil. I think this is a honest, true competition amongst several guys that, like you said, Fran don't want them playing. I know.
Blasphemy!
Fran doesn't want them playing so many snaps in a game, so it's going to be interesting. Usually, you don't see that. You want a team to get a set five in that gel, and that be the line for the year. Give or take. The physicality of the season. You might have to plug and play with somebody in there, but I think that the competition on this year's squad and some of the young guys, even the freshmen coming in at 6'6", 330, so I mean, it's just a different team when you look at them in the skill in the trenches, and I think Fran even said it that hey, it makes the defense, gives them a good opportunity to go up against these bigger bodies and stuff like that in practice. So I don't think they're going to be surprised with any other team that they see on the schedule, for what they practice.
Well, finally, we got an offensive lineman with that when a D-end stands up and looks at him, he's looking eye to eye with that guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Now, taking a look, so you're 10-2.
Mm-hmm.
Your arguments, once again, were what one of those two, NC State?
Flipping Georgia Tech and NC State.
Flipping Georgia Tech and NC State.
Yeah.
So that was your argument here, was Georgia Tech and NC State. So Isaac has 8-4, but he's argued 10-2. I have 9-3. My argument for 10-2, so these are the ones that I had as victories here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had those. I did not have NC State, so I'll put a little cross there. I had UNLV. I had Pitt. I didn't have Virginia Tech. I didn't have Miami, but I had these other three. So my argument here, I would love to see Miami.
Yeah.
I would love to see that. But that to me is that's like the kit and caboodle. That's the big old game. That's the main event.
That's after a long season too.
Right. So
it's possible though. You never know.
So NC State here, right? They didn't have Devin Leary last year because he transferred to Kentucky. So that was something to look at. So NC State and Virginia Tech. These are two that, as I told you in my original, my ACC football predictions, I have NC State as the 4th best out of 17 this year, and I have Virginia Tech as the 5th. So there's not a lot of wiggle room here, and I have Miami as the 7th.
You think NC State's bringing back more talent than Virginia Tech?
See, my thing about Dave Doran is I don't think that there's, as far as consistency and a team that can get to 8 wins,
right,
and a team that can challenge the best in the conference, and what they've done to Clemson in a lot of games where they didn't win but they were right there, missing a field goal in regulation or whatever. So I think that, and to me, my argument for NC State, a little more edge here, is the Dave Doran factor.
Right.
And even though some people might not respect Dave Doran, and I think, you're crazy.
I think he's a hell of a coach when he got the players. You know what I'm saying? It's just, maybe I'm not saying it because I don't get to see them as much, but, and they always got good quarterbacks. They always got good running backs. They always got good skill positions. But the years that Syracuse really, the 6-win, we've gone toe-to-toe with those guys, but they never had that, the quarterback might have been hurt and they playing a backup, so that second string guy wasn't established as the guy was that main starter. I know we caught him on some down years. Then we've had the shootout with Dungy, we've had them. And so that's what I'm saying. I mean, I don't know. I thought they bought in a good quarterback, though. I thought I've heard that they bought in a decent transfer. Maybe I'm overlooking that, but But definitely drones for Virginia Tech, man. I was just like, holy moly, that was his coming out party against us last year, and then we
Yeah.
really couldn't stop the run.
Yeah, drones. If we take a look at drones and what he did, he's from Pearland, Texas. We take a look at drones last season, and these were his numbers. Drones, the running back for Virginia Tech,
Quarterback, ain't he?
or quarterback, pardon me.
Yeah.
The quarterback, number one is his number. Kyron Drones, the quarterback. Last season, he didn't really play in the first couple games against Old Dominion and Purdue. Against Rutgers, 190 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick that he had, and then he ran 22 times for 74 yards. Wow. Against Marshall, 19 to 35, 159 yards, no touchdowns, no picks, 15 carries for 75 yards. Against Pitt, 12 for 19, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 21 carries for 41 yards. Then against Florida State, who was ranked 5th in the country at the time, 14 to 27, no touchdowns, no picks, 14 carries for 80 yards against Florida State's defense. Against Wake, 20 of 29, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 15 carries for 59 yards. Against Syracuse, 15 of 24, 1 touchdown, no picks, 8 carries for 56 yards, 7 yards a carry against Syracuse, and a 28-point win. Against Louisville, 12 of 21, no touchdowns, 1 interception, 11 carries for 6 yards was his worst day. BC, 12 of 17, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 20 carries for 135 yards, his first 100-yard game of the season on the ground. NC State, 17 of 30, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, 9 carries, 51 yards. Against Virginia, 10 for 22, 244 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 7 carries for 50 yards, 7.1 yards a carry. And against Tulane in the bowl game, won 41 to 20, 13 to 21. Shout out to my grandpa and my number. 91 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 20 carries, 176 yards, and his 3rd touchdown of the day. Last season, 17 touchdowns to 3 interceptions to go with 5 rushing touchdowns. He had over 800 yards rushing, 2,084 yards passing. Speaking of Kyron Drones, the quarterback of the Virginia Tech Hokies.
Now he's a big guy. I mean, 6'2", 234. Yeah, that's a big size for a quarterback. Big guy, yeah. But again, what I like about what we're doing in practice, Fran said we're gonna be physical. Yeah. If he's gonna bring that attitude into this game,
cue that. I wanna get physical.
Exactly.
Physical.
So it could be, I mean, hey, anything's possible. You put enough hits on him. But he's a big guy.
And Grayson McCall, who is the graduate transfer that's coming in, who I actually had the opportunity to speak with. Grayson McCall coming in to NC State. When we look at it statistically, I believe he's coming from Coastal Carolina.
Yeah, that's where I heard that. Yeah.
So Grayson McCall on the NC State Wolfpack. And we got the sheet up here because I'm going to give you my thoughts here in a second. But Grayson McCall, who is from Indian Trail, North Carolina, he did play 5 years. He was with Coastal Carolina thanks to the COVID year and the redshirt year because 2019 didn't really play. He's got more time. These are his numbers when he was a starter. So in 2020, he had a 68.8% completion percentage, 2,488 yards, 26 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He ran for 7 rushing touchdowns, 111 carries, 569 yards, 5.1 yards a carry. His longest carry was 62 yards. In 2021, his second year as a starter, 73% completion percentage, 2,558 passing yards, 23 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, which means in his first 2 seasons at Coastal Carolina as a starter, he had 49 passing touchdowns to 6 interceptions. On the ground, 83 carries, 250 yards, 3 yards a carry, 4 touchdowns. 2022, he had a 69.1% completion percentage, 2,633 yards, 24 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. Dude is bonkers from touchdown to interception. And rushing 87 carries, 183 yards, 2.1 yards a carry, 5 touchdowns. Last year, 67.4% completion percentage, 1,919 yards, 10 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Obviously didn't play as many games. And
I was going to say, it looked like it might have been injured.
53 carries, 48 yards, didn't have a lot there, a touchdown. So overall, this guy has never had a season with double-digit interceptions. In the seasons where we've seen him for the majority of the time, 3 seasons with 20-plus passing touchdowns to 2 or 3 interceptions in 3 seasons. Looking at, I said 49-6 touchdown interception in the first 2. In 3 seasons, he has 60, or pardon me, in 3 seasons, he has 73 touchdowns passing to 8 interceptions. And his completion percentage is around, in his career, his completion percentage is around 69%, 69 to 70%.
So okay, so the guys are doing something. I mean, he can throw the ball. Definitely. So yeah,
and he can run a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, okay. So given that fact, hey, I mean, and like you say, Coach Dave Doran can definitely coach him up. So that's going to be the key to keep him, in the lineup. So
yeah, so I'm going to say between Virginia Tech and NC State, if I had to pick one to argue 10-2, I'm going to say that they would get NC State more than that they would get Virginia Tech. That's the argument that I would make, is I would make a call here with NC State.
I would even flip it, though. The reason why I say that, because we got the home field advantage with Virginia Tech.
Right. Well, that is right.
You know what I'm saying? You get a Virginia Tech and allow... I mean, it could be easy. I mean, I see what you're saying, but after looking at the stats of the quarterback, so I was like,
he's good. I mean, I guess it would be between
those two.
In my schedule, it'll be between NC State and Virginia Tech, because I don't think they're going to get Miami.
Right.
That would be like huge for any Syracuse fan of any decade. But yeah, I mean, you're right. With NC State being on the road, which I'm not thinking about, Virginia Tech being at home. But the argument to 10-2 would be one of those games, which is a coin flip to me, very tough. But politicians, watch what just happened. Someone who's not me said something that was different than my viewpoint. I listened to what they had to say, and it affected me opening my mind up. Ain't that a crazy thing?
Look at that. But I can see it too. I mean, I'm like, and that could be a flip coin toss for me too. I kind of said, NC State. But now, like, okay, NC State do have a quarterback at least.
Yeah.
And it's a road game. We know how tough road games can be.
Yeah.
But, I could probably, I don't know. I think last year with the Virginia Tech game, what kind of threw me off is I think they came out with first 3 or 4 runs, and it was like, okay, this is the kind of game we're going to play. Not thinking that the quarterback probably ran on us a lot, But he did have a couple of good passes and deep balls where we got beat over the top. So I was thinking Jones was more of a passing guy, but he's kind of like a DJ. He's kind of like that big quarterback that can get out of the pocket and run. He's that dual threat, really, So we either going to have to pick our poison with him. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah. Dennis saying any insight in what style of offense will be run? I would say multifaceted, multi-layered, way too many guys in the receiving and tight end core to try and defend at the same time. Any given time, 4 to 5 weapons from what I'm thinking in the field, plus a running back in LaQuint Allen with some guys behind him that can do some nice things as well. I think Kyle McCord is going to have the opportunity of having 9 to 10 weapons. And I think at any given time, he's going to have between wide receiver and tight end 5 guys to throw to at least, with LaQuint.
Yeah, when you got a talent like Kyle, I mean...
So what type of offense? Difficult to defend is what I would say.
Exactly, but I think Jeff is going to... he's not going to give up on the run, you know, and that's not even... Franz, he's going to be physical, so we might punch him in the mouth early just to soften him up with body blows, and then, haymakers with Kyle. So, I mean, we've seen how Kyle and Marvin...
You talking about Mayweather? When he let him come at him for 10 rounds, and then he hit him twice, and he was done?
Exactly. You wear him down, and then after you got him soft, then you can pick your poison, what you want to do, Because if they're going to try to stop the run, then you just playing in the Kyle's advantage, and okay, I can read the defense. You playing too close, and hey, I got weapons out here. Yeah. You got to be honest with how you want to attack this offense. So,
and I do want to make a note here, and I understand that Kyle McCord played in the Big Ten as opposed to Grayson McCall playing in the Sun Belt. But the reality of it all is Grayson McCall being a starter, supposed to be the starter the last 4 years, was a starter for 3. and had an injury last year. Kyle McCord's only been a starter for one season, and his touchdown interception right there with Grayson McCall. The difference is the new NC State quarterback that came from Coastal Carolina did it 3 years in a row.
Right.
Where Kyle's going to try and have a better season than last season. Kyle McCord, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. The only time he was a starter was last year, 2021-22. He was at Ohio State, played sparingly, and his numbers really showed what would be like one NFL game. 25 of 38, 16 of 20. Last year, he was 229 of 348, 65.8% completion percentage, 3,170 yards, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and on the ground, we're not going to talk about that. So,
which is why Fran told him what he told him. I want the kid Kyle, the young kid, get out that pocket. Don't just think you're just going to sit there. Hey, let's put our legs into it. So, yeah. I mean, yeah, man. I mean, I think the offense, like you said, it's going to be many weapons. You can't just say, hey, they're going to be, what we're going to know they're going to be. They're going to be physical.
Yeah.
So, but we have the advantage of having a quarterback that plays some high-level games. Hey, they were 1 play or 2 plays away from being in the playoffs last year. So,
yeah.
And he had the opportunity to be behind 2 great quarterbacks in his previous stop. So, and we know how highly they talk of the kid. So, I think Jeff, though, being at his time at Baylor and, being around the game, I think we're going to see a lot of, even in the spring game, I don't know if you remember, LeQuint was running through some massive holes just in the spring game alone. So, and that's when your team really not going to give a lot of what you say. They ran about 5 plays. So it's not like the defense was getting caught off guard or what the offense was calling, but, they were getting the job done up front. So, and it's been a battle for what I've heard through all the fall camp. Some days the defense get the offense, and the defense talks highly how well Kyle and the offense is keeping them sharp and keeping those guys on their toes. So, if they're making practice as hard as the game's going to be, then sky's the limit.
Yeah, it's Rab said, "Are y'all scared of being left out of the P3, the Power 3?" Stating that it's I would imagine the SEC, the Big 12, and the Big 10, and not the ACC. I said Syracuse needs to just worry about taking care of their own business and not a media term like power. And then Adam saying Syracuse will beat Miami. Adam, hey.
Again, it's almost like that Virginia Tech effect. We got them in our house. You pack the dome, you never know. But it's going to be, it'll take a valid effort, you know what I'm saying? I would be shocked, but, hey, you got to come with your A game. As far as the Power 3, I think the ACC can brag about the quarterback position with any other league out there. I don't think and just like you saying, they're bringing in the kid from Coastal Carolina. Hey, that adds another quarterback into the group of what we think are going to be some top tier quarterbacks in this conference up and down.
Which is what they had last year, which is what they had the year before. I mean, you think about it, the Trevor Lawrences, the Jordan Travises. I mean, there's a bunch of guys that have come through. I mean, Deshaun Watson is a starter at Cleveland right now. You have Trevor Lawrence, a number 1 overall pick, and a starter in Jacksonville. You have Jordan Travis, who I think in 2 years is going to have the opportunity to be the starter when Aaron Rodgers is done with the Jets. And they traded up in the 5th round to get him. And by the way, shout out to Mike Norvell and knowing him for the last 8 years. I was texting him when Jordan Travis got drafted, and we had a nice little back and forth conversation. So I was telling my boy who's a Jets fan about this dude. So, and by the way, right off camera here, this is one of my favorite cards, and this is right here in the studio. It is an orange sapphire cracked ice Bowman U Jordan Travis Florida State autographed card Gem Mint PSA 10 that sits here in my studio. And you can see that auto right there. So you can see the PSA 10 and the autograph. And why do I like it? Well, because I like Jordan Travis, and I've interviewed him for a couple years, and it's orange in the back. So I tell myself that it's a Jordan Travis Syracuse card. That's what I say.
We could only wish.
Yeah.
But I think there's some quarterbacks in this league that's being undervalued. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Even with Kyle coming to Syracuse, had he still been at Ohio State, probably a little bit more name, but I think there's some people that are overlooking him too. But up and down when you look at it, there's a lot of competition just at that position alone, not taking anything away from anybody else, so.
Yeah. So to It's Rab, who said that, are you worried about being left out of the P3? I would argue back for the ACC. How many conferences can say year in and year out in these last couple of years that when guys transfer out, finish their eligibility, go to the NFL, that once again they're another year of being the league of the quarterback. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was actually, I think, one of the graphics that they had at the ACC kickoff when I was down in Charlotte was the whole we're the league of the quarterback.
Right.
So very exciting stuff. Looking forward to it. Isaac and I say somewhere between 8-4 and 9-3 and an outside look at the season, maybe 10 wins. This has been our Syracuse Orange football preview on Wake Up Call and the product of Wake Up Call, Tortora and Alford. So for now, Dan Tortora, aka DT, and
Isaac Alford
hanging out with you. Go and follow all of the work of Wake Up Call, including Tortora and Alford, by being with us Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. YouTube.com and Facebook.com. Both / Wake Up Call DT and wakeupcalldt.podbean.com worldwide. And of course, search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora or one word Wake Up Call DT on Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Podbean, Podchaser.com, Podvine, Spotify, TuneIn, and YouTube. A big time thanks to all the incredible partners in Central and Upstate New York: Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, Brian's Landing, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Chick-fil-A Cicero, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Avicoli's, Ma and Pa's, Great Lakes Honda City, Pizza Man, GG Cards and Breaks, Mother's Cupboard, Servomation, reimagining and reinventing what you know as vending in businesses, schools, universities, and places of work. And of course, we are the exclusive multimedia marketing partner on Wake Up Call for the Lemoyne College Dolphins, Bryan and Stratton College of Syracuse Bobcats, and the Binghamton University Bearcats. Mr. Alford.
Pleasure being back.
We got one more. Another season to put in the books. And you know that the only way for you to actually enjoy the season fully is to be with Tortora and Alford at the Dome, be with us here in the studio, and be with us all the time on social media. Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, X at Call DT, Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. Have a fantastic night. Be safe. Be good to each other. And as always, God bless. No stress. Do your best. Mr. Alford, you get the last word.
Stay safe. We love you.
Have a good night, everybody. Take care. I said you got the last word. Say something else.
Too late.
I'm never going to forgive you for this. I can't believe you did that.
Gotcha.